This episode of the Critical Careers Podcast is sponsored by CBRE. Hi, I'm Joyce Wady. Welcome to today's episode of the Critical Careers Podcast. On today's show, we're welcoming Luisa Cardani from TechUK, Holly Fenner from Gen+1, and Anna Rantala from BCS. We have a great conversation about what we need to do to welcome new talent to the industry. We talk about the humanness of the industry, the different career paths that each of us have taken to get here, and what the industry needs to do moving ahead. We hope you enjoy the show. Thank you all for being here today. I really appreciate the fact that you guys all took time out of busy schedules and everything to join us. So right now in the the data center industry is growing so fast, and there is a desperate need for talent in the industry. But at the same time, the data center industry itself doesn't always do the best job of talking about itself or do the best job of helping the general public or, the end consumers understand that every time they pick up their phone, they're doing it through a data center. So like I said, all three of you have had very different journeys to get here. So I thought maybe we could start just a little bit, kind of each of you sharing what your journeys have been and stuff. So I'm going to go a little different. I'm going to start Luisa at the end.
Ooh.
Why don't you go ahead and tell us a little bit about how you came to be in the industry?
Yeah, of course. So I have a very different background from most people in the industry. I came first from PR, and then I worked in government for quite a few years through different government departments and different administrations. And I have a more law and regulatory approach background, because of course I did a lot of policy, and so I started with data protection and work through that, Brexit trade agreement negotiations, and then after Brexit, the revamp of our data protection regime. So really data in the purest theoretical sense, and data protection in particular. And as we were doing a lot of that, of course, because data protection, you start looking at resilience, security, and slowly, of course, you start looking at, the infrastructure. And my knowledge was really, the telecom sector. That was where I thought, data, kind of everything happened. And as I started to look, I stumbled upon data centers. I was like, I never heard of this. What is a data center? And as I looked into it, it was just fascinating, because of just how, not only just how technical, but all of the different levels that exist, the resilience, the fact that it needs to be, or at least is as a sector on its way to be more and more sustainable, the energy requirements.
Right.
And so when this position that I'm currently in opened as the sector representative, so I'm a lobbyist for lack of a nicer word, I now work with the sector and with government. And so I don't have that engineering knowledge. I have none of the technical knowledge, but a lot of my job really is to try to translate a very technical sector into policy change, or opportunities that might present itself in the policy landscape, and work with government to try and make the UK the best possible environment for the sector.
Yeah. And that's no small feat. I mean, to be able to translate technical concepts. I mean, I know when I was, a few years ago, I was hiring a lot of people straight out of uni for a job. And I would try to explain to them that with technical PR or technical marketing, you don't necessarily need to understand how it works, but you need to talk about why it's important and be able to kind of translate it for a broader audience. So that is definitely no small feat to be able to do that.
Absolutely. There's a lot of work about educating policymakers, and it's not because they don't want to learn. It's just it's hard to translate something technical into policy, and this is a sector that is very commercially sensitive, a little bit secretive to some degree, even though it technically has no reason to be. It's just the nature of the work. And so it's really about trying to explain not just what the sector does, but why it's important, and how we can have that balance of sustainable growth in the UK.
Yeah. No.
So there's a lot of educating, definitely.
Yeah. Great. So Holly, what about you? What was your path here to the data center industry?
So, I mean, very, very different stories. But I think one of the most common themes that I seem to hear when people are discussing how they got into the industry, it seems every single person has either slipped, tripped, fell on a banana into trying to get into this industry, and somehow we are here.
Yes.
Yeah, like I said, mine's very different. I'm an ex-primary school teacher. I've worked as a teacher for 3 or 4 years, and it just wasn't very fulfilling. I wasn't happy. I was very stressed, and I found my well-being and mental health suffered because of that. So I looked for a career change, stumbled into data centers, few family members and friends, and here we are. And yeah, a very different path to what I thought I'd be doing.
But you know what? When I was interviewing, I mean, I interviewed 30 women for the book, and probably 28 had the same story. Like nobody thought that they would end up here, but everybody's happy that they are. But yeah, like that, I love that. This, stumbled, tripped, whatever it is into it. We all found a different way to get here. But yeah, that's definitely not an uncommon theme for sure.
No, absolutely. And I think that gives you even more credit that everyone's got this skill set of other
Yeah.
industries, potentially
Yeah.
other careers they had in mind or studied for. Like, I mean, I've got probably the weirdest background. I've got a geography degree, a PGCE in teaching. I then now work in marketing and events in data centers. Like, what kind of CV is that?
Well, if you were corralling primary school, students, then,
Yeah.
corralling people at events is probably not all that different. So
Yeah, I mean, the events are easy compared to the children. My gosh.
yeah. So Anna, you are the newest in the room here today. So you've only been in the industry for 6 months. How did you get here? How did you find yourself as part of on our couch today?
Yeah, I mean, have to start with again. I did not expect to be in this industry. Like now I can say a year ago I didn't even know what a data center is. I started 6 months ago. I kind of came from like a untraditional path. So I was actually working in marketing. So I now work as a marketing manager. But I was doing kind of like a double career. So I'm a ex semi-professional athlete. I played beach volleyball, but I've always been into marketing and like kind of branding and the
Yeah.
storytelling world. So I came into 6 months ago through this athlete program that we actually have at BCS where I
Yeah.
work. So we have this program where we bring in ex-professional athletes and we convert them into professionals in the data center industry because of the skill shortage.
Yeah.
So I came as part of that. A bit of like a kind of just saw a LinkedIn ad on a marketing manager. Didn't even know what the company was for.
Okay.
And then I just saw it like marketing. Okay, interesting. I was working in a B2B health tech as
Okay.
a marketer. So I came through that and I saw this ad and I was like, okay, data centers, weird. Then I started talking with BCS and I was like, okay, the people are really, really cool.
Yeah.
And then I was like, okay, you know what? I'm just going to go for it. They sold the whole kind of industry really well. They're like, you can do events. There's so much travel, amazing people. And I was like, yeah, okay. I mean, you always just say that. But then once
I think it's really true though in this industry.
yeah. And then now I'm 6 months in and I'm like, wow, I'm having the time of my life.
Yeah.
It's so fun. It's like we're doing a podcast, we're traveling, we're trying to educate people, we're
Yeah.
doing something that once you're on this side, it can be a bit like we have a cool mission. We're doing something
Yeah.
exciting. We're trying to educate people, but also, yeah, our world can't live without data centers. So it's
Well,
like
and
pretty
that
cool.
was one of the things I did hear quite frequently from it, like during the interviews for the book, is that the criticality of the industry actually really appeals to a lot of people. Like there are people who have been in emergency services, or they were new-ish into the industry when COVID hit, and they saw everybody instantly pivot to doing Teams or Zoom calls and having that online world and stuff. But that criticality of what we do and what the industry does is actually really important to a lot of people.
Yeah, for sure. And it's funny. I was just on a call yesterday with my sisters and I was telling them like how the data center world works.
Yeah,
And I
yeah.
was like, do you guys even care? And they're like, yeah, this is actually really cool. And I was like, really? So it's like, it's super fun to kind of educate people around us. And I feel like it's kind of to some degree our responsibility in a way to educate our like closest people. And then they say the word and that's just how it works the best.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it's kind of
Absolutely.
nice to like just be on this side now and just make sense of this. It's a kind of like a complex industry, but
Yeah.
in a way, once you get it, it's like, and that what as marketers we're trying to like make
Right.
we're trying to make the complex into like simplified wording and like language, like you were saying about policymakers. The same thing in marketing. We're trying to make something
Yeah.
simple into complex into simple.
Right, right.
Yeah.
So I'm really curious. So from like the professional athlete program, so what was BCS's objective with that? Like I've heard of those types of programs for veterans. As they come out of the military, there's companies that will have programs to help them transition out of military life into civilian life. I'm fascinated on the professional athlete. Like, what does BCS see in professional athletes that they think is a good translation to their company and to this industry?
BCS as a whole, we're very much into the skills shortage. Like we're on top of that. We're trying to make things happen there. So then when they first started, we started with the apprentice scheme, and then we thought, okay, is there something else we could as well do? Like, is there other talent, like ways we could bring more talent into this industry? And then a couple of years ago, our founders, they came up with this idea that, okay, what about athletes? There's these attributions that you're great at teamwork, you have leadership skills, you're problem solving, you're in a team setting, you're pushing yourself. There's
Really
all
strong
of
work ethics.
yeah, exactly. All
Yeah.
of these things that you need in the sports environment and as an athlete to succeed. So what about those athletes then when they stop their careers?
Right.
They're kind of like, okay, now what? If there's an industry where skill shortage, why not put those two things together and help them? And now we have 5 athletes who are thriving.
That's amazing.
Yeah, and yeah, it's pretty cool to be
So
part of
what?
that.
And I know I kind of going off on a tangent. I just think it's really fascinating. But I mean, in terms of like, so you played volleyball. Like, what other sports did people come from?
Yeah, so I played beach volleyball semi-professionally for Finland. Then we have rugby player for England.
Okay.
Then we
Okay.
have footballer
Okay.
as well, professional footballer, hockey player, 2-time Olympian.
Wow.
So yeah, it's pretty cool. And then a professional swimmer.
That's
So
great.
that's all the different sports we have.
I'm just thinking of your like summer socials, like how competitive. Oh my God, BCS is going to be like everyone has to go on separate teams. Like,
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty competitive group, but it's super fun. And there's this really cool, like all of when athletes come in, we do this like lunch and learn session where we tell about our background and we tell about the journey, what we did as an athlete. And there's a really good kind of supportive and encouraging environment at BCS. Athletes want to learn from the pros in this industry and vice versa, because there's so much
Yeah.
overlaps in what you can learn, and the more you can have different people in the same like room.
Absolutely.
So it's super exciting to learn from others.
I mean, I love that on so many different levels. One, I love it from just the creativity perspective of the leadership team to stop and say, okay, where else do we look, and what are other transferable skills? Because you wouldn't necessarily think that an athlete has transferable skills into the data center industry, but clearly that's true. Clearly there are skills that are, whether you realize it in your athletic career, actually translate very well into a business environment.
Yeah,
So
100%. And I think
yeah.
it's about the people and because the company is super supportive and want these athletes to thrive.
Yeah.
I think you can teach anybody anything. It's just about the kind of like, if you have the work ethic, if you have the attributions that you want to do something, of course you're going to learn. So it's a really, really cool initiative.
Yeah. And I think also your point too about just all the different types of people. I think that's a really important point, because like if you look at all the different types of people that the industry needs right now, I mean, what do you think that, like I know, Luisa, because you kind of look at the industry as a whole, I mean, in terms of the skills and in terms of what is needed in the industry, why is it so important right now that we're looking at a more diverse sector, whether it's people coming in from athletics or people of, bringing in more women or bringing in young people or, bringing in people of color? Like, why is that so important right now?
So I think, of course, we'll always need engineers, and
Right.
the more diverse background, the more diverse skill set you can bring to engineering. But we forget data centers at the end of the day are companies that are very multifaceted. Will always need legal advice, cybersecurity, compliance. And because it's such a technical and complex industry, it really does lend itself to a whole set of skills that are very diverse. It's just, I think, historically, the sector, a little bit because it was secretive, a little bit because, a little bit like construction, they were a little bit set in their ways, sort of tended to have a bit of a hiring bias, but also the talent pool out there that was doing STEM wasn't very diverse. So now they're really, I see that with a lot of our companies who are in our TechUK membership, that they hire much more diversely than they used to for all of these roles. And I think there is something where there is this understanding that you don't need to understand what a data center does at the technical level. It's about how you can translate that into your job. So whether it's translating technical into simple branding and messaging to, understanding the complexities around the sustainability challenges and how can you improve on those. So there's a whole range of roles. And what I think is really exciting is the recognition that if you really want to improve as a business, if I'm a hiring manager, I should be hiring someone who complements me in their skill set.
Absolutely. Yeah,
If I'm
absolutely.
a detailed person, I need someone who is a big picture thinker.
Yeah.
If I'm someone quite risk adverse, and oh boy, data centers are quite risk adverse, having someone who has a little bit of that rebel spirit might bring new ideas on how to improve systems in a way
Absolutely.
that then makes the business more competitive.
And then just looking at it from a different angle, like how many times do you just kind of do the same thing over and over again? And then someone just approaches it. Well, I should say, my husband and I have this argument all the time because like we both have we're both convinced that we're right on a certain way to do something. And we've just learned it's like, you know what, just because your way is not my way, it doesn't make it wrong and let it go. But it's just, those are things that happen in day-to-day life. But you take that and apply that to a business. Like that's a completely different, that can really give someone a competitive advantage. It could help them improve processes. It could do so many different things.
Absolutely. And given that they really, really need new talent, we don't have, I think, enough as I said, the more traditional talent that data centers have been historically hiring, the pipeline when it comes to STEM is just not big enough for the growth of the sector. And this is not a UK problem. This is a
No, it's a
global
global problem. Yeah, absolutely.
So, there is something about, if you foresee that, you just can't keep poaching people from data center companies.
Right.
That just
right.
doesn't work longer
Right.
term.
Though it does sometimes feel like going to events that it's a very small world and we all run into each other time and time
Absolutely.
again. So
But that is because once you're in the sector, it's really hard to get out of it. And I mean this in the best possible ways because, you said it yourself, you're having the time of your life. Like it's a very welcoming sector. If you've proven yourself, you're in the team, you're in the team.
yes, yes,
Once you've, gained their trust,
yeah,
well, you're in. And
Yeah.
so I think that's also why you keep seeing the same people because once you're in the sector, you really, maybe go to something data center adjacent, maybe the supply chain rather. But you tend to stay, definitely.
Well, and I think that was interesting in talking to all the different women of how much everybody felt that it wasn't like, especially from people who came from other, in other industries or other male dominated industries, how hard they had to work to get a seat at the table. And in the data center industry, the women have kind of felt that as long as once you prove your expertise, then it's like, oh, okay, great. Come sit down. Let's talk about blah, blah. It's almost like there's too much to do. There's not enough time. The industry is going so fast. Great. You know what you're doing. You know what you're talking about. Come along. Let's have this discussion or help me solve this problem or, whatever the situation may be. So
Absolutely. The problem is that's not what you perceive from the outside.
no, right.
I mean,
right.
just from an aesthetics perspective, data centers are not the most, beautiful buildings.
Right. Right.
Some of them are quite beautiful. Now there is a bit of rethinking around design, which brings me at you need to hire architects.
Yeah.
There
yeah.
you go, more diversity. But it's more that, the perception of the industry is not necessarily, having the time of your life. And especially if you're young and if you're a woman, it can be
It's not
quite
very glamorous.
it's not very glamorous. It's not a sexy sector.
No.
It's
Right.
not tech in our perception of tech, Silicon Valley, your kombucha drinking geeks. You see what I mean? So I think it can be quite daunting and it doesn't really, in the first instant, it doesn't really communicate like, yes, please come and work with us. We're
Right.
so welcoming. There is a little bit of that apprehension.
When I grow up, I want to be in data centers.
Absolutely.
Mommy, look how glamorous the ladies look.
Yeah. I think it's like even like when I tell my friends what I do now and what's the sector, and I'm
Yeah.
like, I mean, I know it already when I'm about to say it. Maybe that's the thing we have to change. But anyway, I'm like, yeah, I work in data centers, and then it's like,
Huh?
what?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's like
Blank stare.
yeah, blank stare. So it's tricky, but that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to change it.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Holly, that is kind of what your organization does on a day in and day out basis. I mean, it's kind of a perfect segue into, what does Gen Plus One do, and I mean, I know you guys are talking to young people and you're providing community within the data center, but when you're talking to people outside of the industry, like what are you telling them? How are you helping them get a better understanding of the sector and helping kind of pique their interest in it?
Absolutely. So, as you said, Gen Plus One is professional community. It's a platform for young people to evolve and connect and elevate their own personal careers. So, we host events. This is based around young talent for the next generation. So, whether that be creating awareness that this industry exists, because that, like you said, it was a secret. It's now no longer a secret, but it's now actually getting the word out there, promoting it in its form, and like, this is an option for you. This is
Right.
something you could do when you grow up. Actually, like this, put this on the map. Like this is an option for you. And the other thing is, now that we've got that awareness of the industry, is okay, right? How do we promote it, and how do we segue those people through their careers? So that is something that we're really big on working through. So we have our events. We try to make our events as inclusive as possible. So whether that be the typical social networking where you've got people there, you can have a drink, have a relax. And we try to do that in the most organic way possible. You won't find lanyards at our events. You
Yeah.
can't go eyeballing, looking for those people you really want to have a conversation with, or your boss has told you must go and talk to them.
Right.
You have to meet the person for who they are first. So human first, organic interactions. And then, later down the line, you might get, I remember meeting you at a Gen Plus One event. Oh, that's really great. I want to work with you now. Or, how are you getting on? Those kind of things. And that's kind of where you said you go to these events now and you run into the same old people. But those people have probably been with you for about 10, 20 years.
Yeah.
And we want to be kind of like getting to that point already,
Sure.
right at the beginning of the career, because they're probably your most valuable asset to your
Well, and it's also, I mean, it's a real issue too, because I mean, there is a big portion of the industry that will retire out in the next, in the next 5, 6, 7 years or so. And if that, when that happens, there's, leadership ranks need to change. And so having those,
Absolutely.
because so much of, I mean, and this, to me, I think this is regardless of it's the data center industry or not, but the people you connect with, the networks that you build, I mean, that like every job I've ever had has been through the network of people that I know who can say, oh, you should talk to so and so, they're hiring, or just making those connections and stuff. And I think providing that at an early stage in your career is phenomenal. I kind of built that myself when I was first starting out, but to have a kind of have a community kind of built in is phenomenal.
Well, it's not everyone's bag, is it? It comes easy to some people. Networking can be really difficult, and also no one teaches you how to network. Like you don't come out of university going, right, how do I have a conversation? How do I break the ice that
There are so
easily?
many classes they should teach at university
It's
about
the
life
soft-
that they don't.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
And it's those soft skills. So I mean, going back to something that we offer, our events, especially those social ones, that we have activities there, or games you can do. For example, we have paddle tournaments and things where breaking the ice isn't as difficult as it should be, and it's easy to do that. Oh, I play this game of ping pong together. Oh, okay, who do you work for? Da, da, da. Naturally having conversations, but it's fun and it doesn't feel awkward or scanning for lanyards. But aside from the standard typical social networking, we also do wellness. So we have a really big database full of runners. Like, who knew data centers and running went together so well? But it really, really does.
That actually really surprised.
Yeah.
Well, I wasn't expecting that in Cannes at Data Cloud.
Oh, yeah.
That every morning there was running groups going, and I don't think it was the same running group. I think there was
Running,
multiple.
cycling,
Yeah,
tennis,
Yeah.
golf
swimming,
which is
yoga
normal.
on the beach.
I mean,
yeah.
this is probably BCS's bag. Like this, you guys, we had great attendance from BCS. My gosh, you guys were there in force. But that is true. Like young people, especially, we don't want to network over a glass of wine. Maybe we're not into that. Maybe we're not big drinkers. Maybe we're focusing on our well-being. Maybe that's something really important to us. So why should the opportunities to meet new people, make connections, stop at a glass of wine and a late night?
Yeah,
It should be an early morning and a run, and something that makes me feel good, and a good way to start the day. You're right, Can. I mean, we had 40 people at least every single morning coming down to have a run and meet other people.
and it
then
wasn't
go
just
off-
young people; it was people of all
No,
ages that
all
were down.
ages, all
So
ages.
7
at
a.m., right?
7
a.m.
a.m. Yeah, and also, these people have been out late last night, and
yeah,
you could see it in their face, but they still turned up because
Yeah.
that's something important. And that's the whole point of Cannes. This is a long old stint, but I couldn't believe the attendance we had. It's so successful. But run clubs, we've got them in Milan, Madrid, Frankfurt, Dublin, and we're actually launching it in Sydney, Australia. Like, that is wild. So there
Wow.
are runners absolutely everywhere
Yeah.
in this industry
Yeah.
that would like to network in that way.
Yeah.
And I think that's so important. So our run club is a really big successful event that we do. And aside from that, we also are really focused on education. So we have masterclasses, we try to do them once a quarter. And like I said, it's teaching soft skills. Like no one teaches you that, and no one provides you with an opportunity to be able to, I don't know, have a difficult conversation as a practice.
Yeah.
The
Sure.
first time you
Sure.
have a difficult conversation, it's going to be difficult
Yeah.
because no one teaches you
Until
how
you
to
do it
navigate
several
that.
times, and I don't even feel like I do it well at
But,
this stage.
right, but at least if you've got a bit of an insight what to expect, your first appraisal, or maybe
Yeah.
having to pull up a team member on some shoddy work or something,
Yeah.
like those kind of things are really nerve-wracking, and it shouldn't be you just having to like give it a go and see how it goes, or feeling really awkward about it. And especially it's not settling. So it's go into an appraisal, your boss should be focused on you. They should be willing to hear you out and have a really in-depth conversation, and you should get something from that appraisal.
So what do you do then in terms of the outreach beyond the industry? Because I mean, those are some phenomenal programs to support the young people that are here. And like as you said, or I think as you said, Anna, like every conversation we then have with friends or family certainly slowly either changes the perception of what a data center is or provides more education and understanding. So all of that stuff is really important. But I mean, what do you guys then do to try to like help new people come into the industry?
Right, so this is where we're at. The awareness is building. People are starting to take
Yeah.
note. Yes, this is an injury. Maybe I want to work in it. Here's some job roles potentially. This is a list of things you could do, which massively varies, as we've discussed. There's something for everyone if,
There
if
really
you
is.
really are keen. But it's like, okay, fine. Now what? What am I going to do? So I think Gen Plus One, that's kind of our mission, something we're really working on. Next year, 2026, we are doing a very own young persons conference. That is going to be
Ooh.
name's still in the works, so I'm not gonna
That's okay. You don't have to give away
do
anything
any
yet.
spoilers just yet, just in case we change it. But yeah, we are having a conference that is for young people and young talent to come along to meet companies and see, whether this is something. What do you do, for example, like KO? We're an operator. We have this job role. This is something. If you're interested in this is maybe a company for you.
Yeah.
And it's a celebration of those when we really will be supporting, especially the sponsors like KO, like BCS, who have really supported us from the beginning of our mission. That's a chance for you to celebrate that. We've had some brilliant other companies like AVK, GWE, Moy, Materials. All of them have really supported us from the beginning.
Yeah.
And this is our opportunity to show them the careers, give them a workshop, a space, listen to some panels. And those panels will not be the same old people you see on every panel at every conference having the same old conversation.
Well, but I also manage, it's not going to be I think I can't even tell you how many like announcements, data center announcements I saw this week. And we were talking about this the other day they were talking about the megawatts and of power that,
Digestible information that people can understand. I'm an ex-teacher. I don't know the ins and outs of a data center.
Yeah.
But no, like you said, you don't have to understand it to its like highest level, but you have to be able to see where you would fit in, or what your role would be, or how you would play a part.
Right.
But yeah, young people are the ones on the panels. They're the ones speaking from their experiences, their understanding of sustainability, and how we're working on those things. A big celebration of data centers, and we are reaching out to schools, to colleges, to universities, to grads, apprentices, and then already those young people we have in our database coming to our events to be in one place together. So
I
that
love
is our 2026 mission. But aside from that, we are building another sort of space to, if like you said, what next? What would you do? So we are going to have a space on our website where you can go in there, and if you want to look for what companies are hiring grads, what companies have an apprenticeship scheme. Like, for example, you shouldn't have had to find that on LinkedIn and go, let me look into this, do my research. Like, if you want a job and you're interested, it's here, it's on a bulletin board, everything's there where I can find it. And the companies that are really pushing to celebrate young careers or want to open that opportunity up, they're going to be there in glory. And that's the point. This is your pathway. We've shown you an awareness. We've given you events. See if there's something you're
Right.
into. And now you're interested. Here's where to start.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I have to comment on this one because I had an amazing experience last week. Just a testament like what Gen Plus One is doing. So I was at a birthday party of my friend, like
Oh,
just
okay.
my like
I was just
close.
thinking then, what did I do last week? We didn't host an event
Well,
last week.
this is because of you. So I was there celebrating my friend's birthday. She had like her friends coming in, and then I met with some new people, and we started talking like, okay, what do you do? And I said I work in data centers. And he was like, do you know Gen Plus One? And I was like, do you know Gen Plus
Really?
One? So it's like, yeah. So he used to work, like now he's a sustainability consultant, used to work in the data center sector. He's come to some of your running clubs last year. And I was like, no way, that just makes me so happy. And these are the little
Yeah.
examples. Like,
We're getting there.
I know. And what you're saying about like we're on a mission to spread the word and, you know, like make it more accessible, like coming and like just make it more out there. And I was like, this is just a real life example what you've guys done. So it's like super, super exciting.
That's really cool.
That's great. You can see the smile on your face.
Yeah.
You're very happy about that.
That is really awesome. Really cool.
But I do think, I mean, you use the word accessibility there, and that has a very broad definition. But I mean, I think in this term, it's accessibility is just in terms of, what does the general public know about data centers? A lot of times the perception is not then great. When news headlines, especially on the major, media are talking about, data centers and taking water, or you can't power houses because of data centers. I mean, there's a lot of things that are really, really scary headlines. How do we start talking about it differently? What language do we use? What, like you said, bite-sized pieces. But I mean, what should we be doing as an industry to have that different type of conversation to help people really understand that?
So, if I may,
Please.
a plea to the industry: stop putting out press releases that say new 500 megawatt data center. That is dry, and that increases the perception that these are energy guzzling monsters.
Yeah.
Which it's not the data center that uses the power. The power goes into the chips, and the chips are activated by what? Consumer behavior. You're
Right.
watching Netflix, that has to go through a data center somewhere. Now, I'm not really one to, I'm not in marketing. I don't do branding. Like most of my engagement and educational piece really is talking to the media and to policymakers. But a lot of these myths around the industry have real world impact into then policy.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so you're not just trying to attract talent, but you're also trying to teach the policymakers about the complexities of the sector.
Yeah.
And the amount of young people that also work in government that, I have to approach from the civil service side, being like, oh, let's talk data centers and sustainability, because they care about sustainability. Young people really do care about climate change and sustainability. And I find myself in front of a, sustainability warrior in the civil service being like, oh no, data centers are terrible for the environment.
But that's the worry, isn't
Exactly.
it? Like, is that why no one wants to work in there?
Well, I think there is some of these myths don't help.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And if I have to die on this hill saying data centers are not environmental monsters,
Right.
and I speak for mostly Europe and the UK, right? So my job is to
Yes.
champion the industry here. I can't speak for geographies where, say, the grid doesn't work, or water, like all of these things. I will die on that hill. I am making it my personal mission. Of course, as I said, my job is not necessarily to attract young talent, but it's to speak to that part of, society which either makes laws and regulations or, prints news. And often the two are intertwined. So I try to change perception from a very different angle.
Yes.
But I do
yes.
recognize that some of these myths might be why young people look at the sector in a very apprehensive way.
I mean, the reality is even politicians are, they are the general public, and that, I mean, they have a much more influential role in determining the policy of what works and what doesn't work and that kind of stuff in each country. But they read the newspapers probably more avidly than most of the general public do. Like, whatever they are easily influenced in that way. So you can see that at just a very basic
Yeah.
human level. They're people first, and they're so that's how they're going to consume that information initially,
Absolutely.
and then apply it into their
And the
daily
media
life.
is sensationalist by nature, right?
Yeah.
Nothing sells like bad news.
Right.
And this is hence my plea. Please stop saying 500 megawatt data center. What we want is your stories to make it to the media,
Yeah.
to be pushed out there.
Let me tell you a secret. So we went we hit the streets of London, myself and Anna.
Yeah.
And Lizzie joined us from KO, and we hit the streets of London to find out what they actually knew about
Yeah,
data centers,
yeah.
and not a whole lot. Or well, okay, what they knew, like you said, was something quite scary. So, I mean, half of the people we spoke to, what did they? I don't know what data center is. I know it's bad for the environment.
Right.
Or do you use a data center? Like, no, I never use data centers.
Yeah.
Well,
Why would I need one?
yeah.
I don't.
No, I don't think I use them. Not on purpose anyway.
Yeah,
It's
Yeah.
real misconceptions of, oh, I know they're really bad for the environment. They're not sustainable, or they're using up all our energy, and it takes so much water to cool them. And it was eye opening, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was very eye-opening, and like the narrative was always you could not they could point to the cloud and be like, yeah, that's where our data is and internet and all of this stuff. And then you go to the next one, kind of like, okay, what is a data center? Can you draw a data center? No, what's that? Oh my God, I've never heard. Like, what is it? I don't need it. Oh no.
Yeah.
And then always ending with I just know they're bad for the environment, and that's just correlation from what the media is painting.
Right.
There's just all the time like little news, even just like your average conversation is consuming like half a liter of water, and this is what it's doing to the environment. And there is not this like critical thinking behind it, like, okay, actually, because we don't know, or generally you don't know what the data center is, so you right away assume it's bad because it's bad for the environment. So it's like, it's tricky, but because there's no education, or there isn't like good publicity or good press on this industry, so we're trying to like the warriors here and try to be like, hey,
Sure.
actually it's
Sure.
okay. And it's quite funny how like maybe even a year ago I was on the other side kind
Yeah,
of thinking this
yeah.
as well, and I was like, yeah, terrible, I'm not going to use AI, oh my God. And now I'm like, no, actually it's okay. So it's like, it just shows like there is just like the lack of knowledge and the
Yeah.
education.
Well, because I mean, what data centers, the data that they house, like there's so many different layers and levels that we just don't really connect back. And that's the part that I wish we could talk more about.
Yeah, and it's bizarre because in a way we're all in this together. Like the press and media, they need data centers to get their coverages out and like get publicity and get like people to read more. So when I first entered, I saw right away like, okay, we actually need to flip the narrative into come and be part of the solution, and come and like,
Yeah,
like
absolutely.
there are sustainable ways to do this.
Yeah.
So come to this
And
side
lots of
and
companies are doing that.
exactly, and there's exciting opportunity, and be the solution rather than
Yeah.
the kind of problem, or like outside just
the
screaming
the
and
naysayer, yeah.
exactly.
One of the things that we really focus on at Gen Plus One, like I said, was the awareness of the industry. So we're trying to do that at its rawest form, where all the young people are, and TikTok and Instagram. And I mean, I get myself down some holes on TikTok, and I think I was reading some comments on this video, and someone said, yeah, we must delete all our iClouds and we must disconnect
Oh,
from these
God.
things. And I went, you're on TikTok,
Yeah.
social media, commenting,
Yeah.
using data
Yeah.
to tell everyone to switch off their iCloud
Yeah.
data.
Yeah.
And I was like, you can't, like, this is so ironic. Like,
Yeah.
and
But
so-
that is
and-
where the disconnect comes.
But then I think it's fun. So, some other people had commented that exact thing below them, and then they'd kind of gone away going, oh, I look a bit stupid now.
Yeah.
Like,
You're not sending your protest by carrier pigeon,
That- right.
But I think this, there's I hope some comfort in the knowledge that a lot of sectors have had to go through this. It's just new for this sector, and therefore they are a little bit also in the eye of the storm, because this is happening at a time of an energy crisis.
Right.
This is climate change is happening, but the aviation sector has gone through this, telecoms has gone through this. Remember all the people terrified of telephone masts?
Yeah,
It's I think it's part
It's
of
just new and
it's-
scary.
Exactly. I think it's part of a natural cycle. It's just that we find ourselves a little bit at a crunch point also from a skills perspective.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we do need
Exactly. We're at an intersection of those two things, and the industry is growing. We need the talent. Plus, you have this this public discourse going on at the same time, and it's an uncomfortable inflection point that we're at. So
Absolutely.
for
But
sure.
I say this to everybody that I tend to get in this conversation with, that it's an industry effort. Like like Gen Plus One, we're doing so much, and we're
Right.
working with such amazing companies to support us with that. But unless everybody gets behind it, like it's going to be minuscule, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah, and I do think there is a desire to
Yeah.
do that. I think people are recognizing and realizing, and I think just the nature of the industry, and just how innovative it is, like thinking outside the box is a valued skill set in the industry, regardless of where you're at. So I think these types of things that are doing that I think that's all, it'll be better for it. It may feel like it's moving slowly, but I think you might be surprised in 12 months, 18 months when we look back and see where we've actually come. I think that's actually a big,
Yeah, for
that
sure.
I think we'll be very pleased. I hope.
Yes.
Yeah.
So one more question, just, kind of a general question for each of you. If you were going to give advice to someone about coming into the industry, what would you tell them?
I would probably, it's a bit of a combination of everything that we've talked about.
Yeah.
But especially when I first came in, I saw that it's very human, the industry.
Yeah.
So I think if you would come into this industry, be open to, like really meet new people and have this like humanity mindset that, okay, this is very like people business in a way at the end of the day. And it's, you can work on those skills. I would say, like, if you're naturally like, maybe you're not the most extrovert or you kind of like struggle with that, maybe go to a Gen+1 event and we can.
You stole mine.
Oh, no. But there's this kind of like, okay, if you kind of want to have fun,
Yeah.
succeed, and grow, be open to just like really meet new people. Say yes to when they ask, go to a podcast, go to go to that event,
Right.
go and like learn that lesson. Like kind of this openness. And then I think that'll open a lot of new doors.
Yeah, you did steal
Oh,
mine.
no.
Yeah, I'm going to plug it. Come to a Gen+1 event and follow us on our socials as well, because I think it's just really important to be part of a community that is really supportive of young people in a career where you could potentially be working in for like 20, 30, 40 years.
Yeah,
That is valuable.
It is still a young industry, and I
Yeah.
don't think people really realize that. I think, the tech has been around for a while. Like technology's been around for a long time, but this industry and its importance, like it's still young in that regard.
And that's exciting. Like
Yeah.
you're going to be part of something really cool.
Absolutely. I think also have a flexible and growth mindset in the
Yeah.
sense that a lot of since we're talking about people retiring,
Right.
when I ask them about their career path in the sector and their job titles, they've changed so much.
Yeah,
They've done
right,
thousands of
right.
things. So, the idea that you come in, you don't feel like, oh, I'm coming in and I'm junior, I'm going to be in this role for God knows. Like, this is a very evolving sector. Sometimes you're going to end up doing 3 different roles in one. You get to sort of like choose and change your career a lot,
Yeah.
which, you need to have that growth mindset. You need to have that flexibility and always be curious, because realistically, it innovates so fast
Yeah.
that if you're sort of set in your ways, you don't have this sort of like constant critical thinking,
Yeah.
right? Then, maybe the sector is going to be a bit challenging. But, given how critical young people are, I'd say that should be a pretty good fit.
But that's quite nice, because young people, you study something at uni or you study certain topics, but you don't have to decide right now what that end
Yeah,
result's
yeah.
going to be. And that's so important, because, I mean, good example
Yeah,
here.
right.
Like massive career changes all 3 years, but that's it. You don't have to say that's it and that's it for life.
Right.
Absolutely. You might come from PR and end up doing
Government
policy
lobbying.
and lobbying.
Yeah, exactly. Well, thank you guys. I really appreciate all 3 of you joining us today. I think this has been a great discussion, and I've enjoyed chatting with you.
Thank
Thanks
you.
so much, Joyce.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Critical Careers. A special thank you to our sponsor, CBRE, for their support in helping us share the stories of the people shaping the future of digital infrastructure. To learn more about CBRE, visit www.cbre.com. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to like, share, and follow the podcast. Thanks for listening.